markers? That's not a thing.
Well, I don't know what you're talking about, but you're live on YouTube right now, so.
Progressive web apps anagrams to something, and I've just got to figure out what it is.
PWA or what?
Well, that's the abbreviation, but also anagrams to grave swap preppies? No, that's not good. I'll find a good one.
You figure it out. You figure it out.
How's it going, man?
How about yourself?
I'm not bad. Am I audible? There's been some audio stuff today.
I think so.
You got waveform? We got waveform?
I mean, it's moving, and this is the only mic that's turned on, so I'm going to take that as a good sign.
That's all you can do.
Yeah.
All right, well, do you want me to hold?
I can hold it for you. It doesn't really matter. Kalen Jordan, see, I had 2 mics going, and he said that I should ask people questions, and it's intimidating if I stick this in their face. And so he suggested that I do that to see how that works.
Yeah, I guess that's okay. Hang it over, I think, so that it feels like a boom, and I'm a soap opera actor. That's better.
That with the lights, make you sweat.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, I thank you for accommodating this sort of the odd timing and the just-in-time nature of my scheduling lately. But this is the first time I guess we've hung out, really, or spent any time together. And I did not really know what to expect out of the Titans event down here. You know, I had a lot to juggle, but I really like the kind of snack-sized conference that allows me to go check out something and check out something else, and not go home feeling like I spent 20% of my time in hallways.
Right.
So.
Yeah, well, I mean, how long have you been with Magento?
About 10 months.
Okay, so is this your first snack-sized conference, as you put it?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so. There have been a number of different smaller events that I don't think rise to the label, but that is going to change. I'm about to go off on a pretty significant roadshow, it looks like.
Are they putting you on the European tour?
It's not entirely Europe. Boy, I'd love that, and each place that I would go would deserve the attention, but there is the Meet Magento event in New York. I guess I'm going to go to that one, and then there's the Manchester, and then potentially I'll be going to a couple places in the southernmost of hemispheres in the first part of 2018. Of course, this is all happening at the same time that we're supposed to be in a mad rush to get out some cool stuff.
Yeah, so it sounds like PWAs are going to be a while you just take this road trip.
It's a while. Now, I don't do enough implementation to satisfy myself these days, but given that we have successfully hired a bunch of people who are leaps and bounds beyond me, both in their awareness of the current technological trends and in their facility with new patterns, like the more code I write, the less code that in the final product will be theirs. So
I guess for those that may not be aware, I mean, what is your position with Magento? You know, what is your title and what is your day-to-day responsibilities?
All right. Okay, we got an edit point. Hi, I'm James Zetlin, and my title is front-end architect, and that is a position that did not really exist at Magento, though there was a lot of front-end expertise that was spread across a number of different sprint teams. But I was the first person hired back in December of last year, really.
During the mad rush to acquire talent at Magento, right?
Yeah. Well, the rush continues to be mad. It's a happy rush at this point. We've met with a lot of success. But my role was fairly nebulous. It has only recently become even slightly less so. But you look at that.
I know. Fancy. Lots of flashing.
Yeah, seriously. I should have just thrown it off the screen to see.
That would have been fun until you had to go retrieve it.
And it comes back and it hits me in the head. Yeah, the role was fairly nebulous, and it was basically an acknowledgement that no matter how many good ideas pervade across just the large amounts of work and development that they're done, they may not fit together. We want somebody who wants to sort of see far. And my history in e-commerce has been such that I've made enough of my own mistakes and watched and, you know, been burdened with enough of other systems' mistakes that I can kind of see the next direction maybe a little bit more clearly. I was there for every different jQuery. I was there for the first attempts to do MVC and to port that entire architecture wholesale from the Rails type of application directly into the JavaScript runtime, and then the ways that sort of slowly evolved. So, I mean, I've just been around long enough that somebody needed to be arbitrarily picked to just kind of decide what we'd choose and which direction we would be going.
So any front-end architecture changes at this point, if anybody has any complaints, they should direct them at you.
I would rather not receive complaints directly, because then that takes time out of my day. If you could complain about me behind my back,
okay,
that would be preferable. Just better for everyone.
Just gather them all together and give them to you at one time instead of onesies and twosies.
Yeah, exactly. No one's ever made an effigy of me. You feel like it's like a bucket list thing. I am not making the very low-level decisions, and that's something that took a lot of getting used to. Not writing a lot of code, not doing a lot of like sprint grooming and managing anymore, and I was quite recently. I worked at PayPal doing their consumer web portal stuff just with other developers, in 2016. So what I have ended up falling into this zone of comfort and excitement doing is kind of air traffic controlling a bunch of smart people around so that they're building the next phase of Magento, but also of ecom, because I've worked on platforms that were competitors to Magento, and it's nice to finally be in a place where we're trendsetter by nature, not just of market share or by just the money behind us, but the community and its enthusiasm. There's nothing else like that. So it's great. It's an honor to be able to be just, the person who is, everyone has the knowledge to select, but the person who just arbitrarily chooses what we're all going to do. And that's what we've done.
Once you're able to just kind of make the high-level decisions and then go on a European tour and come back and see them executed, it's hard to go back to actually writing code. You know that, right?
Well, I actually wrote some code last week, and the real hazard that I found is that once you start, then you eventually you quit your email because it's slowing down compiles, and then quit everything, and then you just never want to do anything else again. At least that was my experience, because I was writing test harnesses for some cool new stuff we're doing with PWA. And once I get myself into that world, I'm super excited to be there. But yeah, I mean, you can't do everything, and there's some folks that we've hired, Jimmy Sanford, Andrew Levine, who are so much more prolific and so much more conversant in code than me, and I was good. I'm still okay. That I'm glad that they're doing the stuff. I'm not going to just announce we're picking this technology and then just fly to Europe. These roadshow things are kind of like pinpoint tours to make sure that people have access to ask the questions they want to ask. So I'm taking just a very small number of wagon trains and gold bars and stuff. It's all just but the goal of it is to gain community feedback. Like I said this in the blog post, it's like part of what made me feel good about yet another big tech change, is that this one's going to be driven by the community demand, the community need. Everyone's really striving to have better performance and a better experience writing code and making things on their developer computers for Magento stores. And so I mean, really we're just letting people by saying like, okay, we can guarantee this and this is going to work together. And then the chief duty that we have is not to like build every single bit of functionality, because that's never been the strength of the few dozen Magento core developers spread across the world to do that for all you. What we do instead is try to make a framework that's robust enough that the community can safely, securely, and happily develop all of the cool functionality themselves and have it all merged together at the end. So right now we're thinking about stuff like, what are those merge points? It's like I'm only designing the ports on the side of the laptop and nothing else. That's kind of the deal.
So for people that maybe don't understand progressive web apps, or PWAs as we're calling them, what's that 50,000-foot view so they kind of get an understanding of what we're talking about?
Yeah, sure. I should probably have a spiel by now that's like canned and so it feels too smooth. But I don't, and I do think I can define them very well. A progressive web app is a name coined by Google, but much in the same way that responsive web design was like a name coined by Ethan, the guy who originally did the article. It really is just a nice term of art for a bunch of really important and useful techniques, some of them using some newer browser technology, that are really like the only responsible way to do web development in the developing world and in the developing community. And obviously it's that sounds extreme. You can write a website that isn't a PWA. I'm not going to call your mom and tell her you're a failure, but that's kind of the attitude. What it is in practice is a progressive web app is an application, like an app in the same way as a phone app on your home screen, with all of the feels that has. Works offline. It's very reactive, very responsive. It's not totally bound to the internet. It doesn't refresh. Doesn't have browser stuff all over it. It's an app, but it is written in web technologies. And it's only been fairly recently that browsers and operating systems, especially mobile operating systems, have offered us enough core built-in functionality that became feasible to do. Much like with responsive web design and media queries, like we finally got the good thing, and now you can make an app that competes. You don't have to go through the app stores and their owners' restrictions. You don't have to cross-compile or hire people who are experts in only one given native technology. Instead, you make a thing that feels like an app. It works when you're in the subway tunnel. It immediately comes to life as soon as you tap the button. It doesn't have to load every time. If you're a repeat customer, then it starts to learn your behaviors locally as well as remotely. And it feels, for all the world, like an application that's written in whatever the native thing is in your device. And it's really not that hard to write. It's still just HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So you may have to learn some new concepts as a developer, but you don't got to hire all new staff the way that they told us we had to in 2012 when the web is dead and we have to do native. So we're swinging back to sanity now, and progressive web apps are a pretty impressive platform. And in the wild, there aren't that many, and one that Magento has is to make the techniques for developing them a little bit more democratized. Right now, there isn't a lot of really good tooling to bring people up and to get them squared away if they don't have experience with it. So Google is looking to get some of that from us in the collaboration that we've set up with them. What we want to see is a lot of people get the returns on switching to a PWA architecture that Housing.com has, that Lancome has, that the various e-commerce shops in India and in other places where data is at a premium have done. We're talking 62 to 100% conversion increase, and that's the 50,000 foot view, I would say, is that's what you get. And you save your customers too. They're downloading less data for the same experience.
And I guess the thought process is that eventually native apps and websites are going to converge into this one technology. There won't be, you won't have a need necessarily, at least for most people, to write a native app. You won't have a need to create a website that's not a PWA. And so eventually you'll just kind of get everything in one.
Yeah, I think that's a wise way to look at it from the very long view. If you're uniting the perspective of the merchant, who is the way they make an app is by manipulating contracts with other folks and talking to other folks. Now you're kind of always talking to the same set of folks. You don't have to call your website people and then your mobile people.
Right.
And if you're a developer, then certainly there will continue to be a use case for apps written in the fastest possible code for a given platform, written in Objective-C or whatever, specialty work or systems programming. But development has been stalled in this. You've got to write text into your code editor thing for so long. I think that in the far future, there are going to be systems like the web where JavaScript looks so different than it did just 10 years ago. You just look at it, it's like, what are these @ signs everywhere? The technologies of the future will continue to abstract and move faster till you're probably just dragging blocks around and your 4-year-old probably writes an app that breaks 1 million downloads, before he gets to pull-ups. That's kind of what I think the 100-year view is that. Web should be just literacy.
So for Magento, now PWA is basically going to be an add-on. It's not replacing the current Magento front end. I think that was the initial concern, is that, well, now that we're starting to figure out Magento theming, all that's going to change. This is an addition to, this is probably a preferred way of doing it, but it's not actually completely replacing the system that's there now.
Yeah. Well, okay. No BS, right? It's really easy to walk this delicate line about this stuff. Yeah, we don't think that the current Magento 2 front end is going to outlive PWAs. Right. We are building this ship to get in it, to be in that ship in the far future. But I've been in a lot of meetings with a lot of slides and a lot of whiteboards and a lot of dates. We're not writing a date that says, now we get rid of the old stuff. If you are B2B right now, or if you know that your use case is people doing purchase orders on desktop computers and corporate offices, a PWA is a long-term good bet because it's a way of centralizing dev, but it is not a short-term need. Right. So if we were to switch entirely to PWA and say but not say like, you guys should all do this like next year, we'd be abandoning a part of our market that we just courted. Right. And it would be irresponsible, it would be wrong to do. Yes, it's an addition, and the way that it works right now is it's going to be an addition as a Magento extension produced by Core that combines a few extra bits of functionality to support the PWA style of storefront at runtime. And then there's going to be separate tools that you can get separately outside of our release cycle that compose together to make the PWA Studio development experience, where a user who is maybe new to this starts up an environment where they've got the browser up, they got their editor up, and they got a window up which tells them what's up. And so that is a foundational thing. It can continue to improve, but like that, it is a tributary to regular Magento development. One that we'd like to use to show you, hey, we know where the pain points have been, and so we are going to show you a way that a certain type of smart replatforming can be the future. But that doesn't mean we're deprecating the core theming experience. And though everyone knows there's problems with it, and they're like, how could you possibly not be wanting to deprecate it sometimes? There's others who disagree. There's people who have gotten into it and found themselves fluent and making money at it. They're not going to get rid of it. It is an add-on, and it is a glimpse and a demonstration of our preparation for the big changes of the future.
Now, you're calling it kind of PWA Studio.
Yeah.
Is it going to be like an IDE? Is it a desktop application? Is it some sort of, just a Magento side plugin? How does it look from an interface standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, behind the curtain, I just we were calling it a suite or a toolkit or a tool chain for a long time. No one sat with me in a room. We didn't write a logo. I was just up at night writing a blog post. Studio. There's, you get the sense of this giant, expensive, monolithic app, but no. I think of it as like putting together like a studio or something using all your favorite tools. You got like the best set of like drafting rulers and T-squares. You get a nice desk. You get the best paper, and then that can come in a package set. What we want to do value into some details here, but in my head, even in this early stage, now a linter, a build tool chain, a developer server, and a heads-up display on the development website, much like template hinting exists in Magento's existing theme. So those things together, any one of them is useful, but they can interact with each other in pretty cool ways. If you've got good template hinting and it knows that it's interacting with a live development server somewhere, you could potentially click on an area that renders with a given template or a given component on your web page itself and see the implementation for that code file open in your editor like in a second and a half. It's that tools can't build, need errors, we need where the templates are, but they can come together, and that's what, in our minds, the studio is. More of an end-to-end focus on experience rather than an app. So no just Windows, no just, OS 10. We're not going to lock you in that manner. Yeah.
So, Magento's been talking about B2B for a while, and I've been real excited about that. We're in rural Alabama, so B2B it's going to be a game changer for us because it opens up so many more opportunities for us in our market. And so they're finally delivering on that, and I should be getting B2B here any day now.
Yeah.
And so as soon as they start delivering on something I've been excited about in the future, then they give me something else to drool over in the future. So how far in the future are we talking roughly?
Well, timeline question. So this is an ongoing effort, and that means two things. One, that some of the things we're thinking about and bragging about will be a long time in coming. Like the idea of the fully componentized store, and like all of the people in our community understanding how to make extensions that work at the PWA UI level, it'll be a while coming. You'll have those, first developers and those first sort of cutting edge shops that do it, and then it percolates. And we don't have any illusions that that won't take years. But because the studio is a small set of tools that can be expanded to a larger set of tools, we do think that you'll get useful stuff next year. We do think that we'll have something to demo. Maybe not a PWA you want to roll out tomorrow because it has, it doesn't have all of the features of the store, but we want to show you what it can be and what it can do from our core product. And then let you guys in the community start to build all of the good stuff on top of it that this community has always outstripped us in both, prolific and quality, like to a great extent to do. Like I don't want to tell you what exactly the tooling will be. I'm really against making promises if I'm not 100% on delivering them. But we're going to try to have something, and something of business value to you, and that value I think will take the form of good training. Good training, tools that train you as you use it.
Okay. So PWAs, it's a Google initiative. I think is supporting them, but there's another platform out there that's fairly large that's not really on the bandwagon so much yet, or what's the deal there? Do you have an estimate of when Apple products may actually fully support them, or
Apple?
Is it Apple?
Sorry, I thought it was Nintendo DS. I had no idea. Of course, Apple specifically does not, right now in iOS 10, support the service worker feature of the mobile browser, which is kind of the centerpiece that makes a progressive web app kind of raise up enough in quality of local experience that you really can't tell. Strong story. A progressive web app is a thing that has a service worker, which means it can do push notifications. It's also just a good website made fast. And the way we're going to write it, if the service worker is unavailable for whatever reason, it needs to continue to work. It may not have a robust offline mode. It may be a little bit slower because it can't batch certain types of requests, but it needs to continue to work. So, on the one hand, we don't want a degraded experience, and so I'm not saying that's the whole story. But on the other hand, hey, it's not going to break. Maybe the much more satisfying answer to you is Apple, like 3 weeks ago, announced that they were contributing service worker code to the WebKit community project. So it's in the pipeline and on its way down to Safari. I'm thinking probably late this year. They've also made a few other noises about how much more they're recommitting to JavaScript as a runtime. So I think some of this was a business case where Apple was trying to figure out what it's going to do to the App Store's bottom line to enhance the experience that gets around the App Store completely. But I think they've figured it out. My guess is that there will be really, really robust in-app purchase options for progressive web apps in the near future.
Yeah, it makes sense. And they just launched the OS phones. They pushed those. What was it, earlier this week? It was.
Yeah.
So the hope was that maybe those would, if not at launch, at least in the very near future, fully support the platform, I guess.
Yeah, you'd want them to. The models themselves, usually what they change is that they have enough just raw horsepower to support a new API. And service workers can be expensive, but actually a lot of this addition to browsers is not so much, and here's like the big iron stuff, it's more that you now can do multiple threads, which is really going to speed the experience up on super slow phones and old phones. Like right now, any JavaScript-powered application has to render its user interface, do its scrolling, do its animation, and also do its data access, do its handling, do its routing, do its remanipulation and ordering of data, all on the same thread, because JavaScript is a single-threaded environment. There have been a few advances in this area. The service worker marks the first one that I think will become broadly, super broadly used, where now you can do all of your UI on the UI thread in the web page and do anything that's significantly expensive outside of there. So the iPhone 8, which is, no, is it, it's the 8?
I'm a Google Pixel user. I try to stay away from Apple products.
Joke is 7, 8, 9, I don't know. A great platform to do a PWA on, but I think what's more significant is that an Android phone with a third or fourth tier processor in an environment that is upcoming in terms of purchasing power, like suburban India, but that doesn't necessarily have great data access rates, those folks are going to see orders of magnitude better experience, which is why a lot of the larger companies that do online commerce in India have either moved in this direction already or are moving in this direction. So there's also people in the United States and people in everywhere else in the world who have similar constraints that are not well served by us developers who all have the most expensive electronics. So it's part of just being a responsible and I think egalitarian merchant and member of a community of e-commerce folks, sort of make a thing that's going to give a great experience to everyone. That's really the real goal.
So are you, you said you were going to be at Meet Magento. Are you giving a presentation at Meet Magento New York, or you're just in attendance?
They want me to talk. I think I'm going to have to do something. Let's see. I know a couple poems. I mean, I don't know.
Some jokes or something, right?
Yeah,
they've accepted my talk, and I have no idea what I'm talking. I submitted a blank sheet of paper. They said okay. So I'm pretty sure you can get on the docket if you try.
Yeah, I want you to know, now that you've spent like 15 straight minutes in conversation,
sorry.
That's didn't have to deal with it.
It's their problem, not mine.
The long, I think with me and PWA stuff is that I am involved in all the super exciting decisions about where we're going to point our levels of effort the most. I'm not having that many genius whiteboard moments about how we're going to solve all the problems. We got people who are doing that. But I am proud of one thing, that I have focused really hard and made sure that everyone else is focused on the experience of the developer. And not just because I'm a developer, but because I have used a whole lot of computer programs that developers use. And there's not really good user experience. We often think too highly of our own ability to get computers, so we don't think we need a nice affordance that makes it smoother for us to move because we're so rational. And then the people who do user experience are always focused on other people. They do user experience studies targeting you and my mom, but not really targeting you and me. And what that means is not it's a horribly unfair situation for us. It just means that there is a lot of gain to be made. There's so much good stuff that we can do with the developer experience of making a progressive web app that will mean that even if you now have to learn all this wacky new stuff and service worker stuff, you'll learn it by yourself. Because these people, these smart people who got into this line of work anyway, they want to and love to learn things. They just need to not have them be getting in their way while they learn them. That's what I'm proud to be focusing on with the studio, and that's why we're not just doing a PWA. We're doing a PWA maker, and we're going to make it nice to use.
Make it simple.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Well, I appreciate you being on the stream here. Like I said, at least, I'm almost in the frame, at least 3 people will watch it, I promise. If not, I'll watch it 3 times, so it'll at least seem that way.
Yeah, awesome.
But I had Talesh, who's running around here. He put out to his followers to, everybody subscribe to this channel, and I added 2 subscribers from his push. So I need someone famous, maybe. Maybe we can get some followers from that. I don't know.
Let's see. I can do a Werner Herzog. No, that's not.
I'm willing to try anything though at this point.
Yeah. Hold on.
Is there anyone famous here? I guess Phil over there is probably the most famous person here, right? I mean, at least in Magento circles, he's the most recognizable with their haircut.
Go get him?
Nah, I'll probably have him on later.
Sandra Bullock lives near here, I think. You could
really?
Yeah.
Well, I know Jerry's mom has a place up in Bee Cave. One of the Dixie Chicks used to live next door to her.
Oh, okay.
So we could, I don't know. I don't know if that's the type of publicity we want in Texas, though.
I don't know. Yeah, I think that Phil will be great to talk to. I would be probably willing to talk longer than you'd be willing to listen. So anytime you want more whatever, more insight, I think another big question you didn't ask is how many more ways we're going to make it possible for community people to have both insight and feedback and collaboration.
Sure.
That, I am behind on that.
Okay.
Need to be better. Alan Kent is extraordinary about that, always has been, so he's a good lodestar for me to follow. I want to do it. It's just a matter of like, what do we publicize? So we need to get some open source repositories out there for some of these little tools I've been talking about. We need to do that, I think, if we can. And we need to contribute back to some of the tools we're using, which we're doing. And we need to do more blog posts, which you'll see from me, so that we can talk about little itsy bitsy parts of this architecture.
It was an exciting blog post. It was a good read. So if you haven't read the blog post on PWAs, you definitely need to check that out. You people. I mean, if you point there, I'd move them closer, because earlier it's like everybody's looking at the screen like this, while they're looking. It's like way away from the camera, so it was awkward. So I got them a little closer together. I zoomed in a little bit.
Yeah.
We're working on it.
I've never been good at this stuff. I'm the guy whose selfies always look like super gross because they're from under. So I hear you.
The lighting is a little harsh.
Yeah, it is.
It's trial and error here. I hope the microphone's working. It looks like it is, but it's going to be terrible if we did this hour-long interview and there's no audio.
That's why there's only 2 people watching. They're the lip readers.
Yeah.
All right.
We got audio over there, Jerry? Yeah, he's been listening. He's supposed to be listening, but I noticed for the first half, he was just like talking to someone else and not even paying attention.
How dare he?
So, but anyway, it was good to have you on, and like I said, I'll track them down and get them on here in a second. That's all right. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.